Welcome to the Nurture Series with Chava Florin. This week, the topic is how to nurture your funny bone with veteran comedian Eddie Brill. Hey, Nurturers. So happy to have you on our show on the Nurture Series this week. Make sure to go and visit my website and check out my brand new book that is going to be on the shelves coming up this summer. It's called Everything's Gonna Be Okay, and it's all about collecting all the stories and advice on how we can live our most nurturing expressions, our most nurturing lives. I have tidbits of my own life, of how I managed to move through crisis. Everything's going to be okay. How to nurture ourselves during a storm. Go check it out on my website. It's not out yet, but you can get on a pre-order. Thank you guys so much. And now to our regular programming. This week, the Nurture Series welcomes comedian legend Eddie Brill. For 17 years, he served as the audience warm-up comic for The Late Show with David Letterman. For 11 of those years, he was the stand-up comedy talent coordinator. Eddie Brill has taped more than 100 television shows in 6 different countries, including 10 appearances on The Late Show and on an Emmy-nominated episode of the FX hit series Louie with Louis C.K., a 3-time MAC Award winner for Outstanding Male Comic in New York City. Eddie has hosted and performed for hundreds of corporate events, including ESPN, Glaxo, Welcome, Hyatt Hotels, BMC Software, and so many others. We are going to be tapping into how to nurture our funny bone. What makes funny nurturing? This week on the Nurture Series, I'm Chava Florin. Welcome, Eddie Brill, comedy legend, to the show. Welcome to the Comedy Hour with Eddie Brill.
But I have my Mum and Sean's costume. The two of us were wearing black.
I know. What's going on? We're getting ready for our Comedy Hour. So happy to have you, Eddie Brill. This is so exciting for all of us to have you. And how did we meet Eddie Brill? This is actually like a very exciting experience how we met.
I was kind of new in the world. I was just born. And there you were, slapping my ass. And I said, "You're not a doctor." And it was like, and then we laughed, and that's how we met. No, we were in Clubhouse, which is this app on iPhone, and you slapped me in the ass. And I'm like, "Well, why do you keep showing up in my life, slapping my ass? I don't like that. I'm not a fan. Some people like it, no.
Oh, please, you were a fan from the beginning.
So yeah, I didn't even hear you do stand up. You were just in this room they were working out material, and I was going to go in there and help some people with critiques. Mm-hmm. Whether it helped, I don't really know. But you wrote to me afterwards, I think, and said, "Hey, I really appreciated your help with the stuff and with the thing, and would you be kind enough to help me with my stuff and my thing?" And I went, "Okay, it's weird I just met you, and no slapping." And, there we have it. That's how we got to meet. And the minute we started talking, everything was, Me Too, Me Too. The Me Too movement between you and I.
We had a serious Me Too movement that sparked from the second that we met. First of all, you are is it appropriate to call you a comic veteran?
I think so. I think
veteran
it's appropriate.
Comic? You have been a comic for how many years, Eddie? Like
in a row. See, I started comedy in the very late 70s, early 80s. Then I quit. So, but I did do it like 6-7 times. But I really started in July 29th, 1984.
So when I was in 4th grade, you were making people laugh.
Yeah, I was outside the window of your school going. So I was in the 4th grade doing stand-up. No, you were in the 4th grade. I was, carry your books from school, saying make believe you're married to me. So I started in 84, and I haven't stopped. I almost stopped once in that little period. I'm glad I did.
Today, the topic is how to nurture your funny bone, because I love comedy. I love writing comedy. I love performing comedy. I think that most people probably laugh at me than laugh with me at this point. As long as people are laughing, I really don't care. I will be the butt of your joke. I've actually always said my dream is that one of my children get on SNL and then spend their entire career getting paid to make fun of their mother. That would be like my dream.
My sister she's no longer with us, was an incredible singer. And her son was kind of interested in acting, but she pushed him and got him on Sesame Street. So he was on Sesame Street, and she was so thrilled, but she was acting like a stage mom, and it was such a pain in the ass. They like said, because my nephew was on with the count. Hello, count number 1, 2, 3, and my nephew was on it, adorable and cute. And my sister kind of blew that by being a stage mom. So you have to be careful when your child goes on SNL. You got to be cool.
What is that scene in The Music Man?
Right. 76 trombones. Oh no.
Guys, this is what happens when Eddie and I talk. We just break out into show tunes. You just have to get used to it. It's just what's gonna happen in this hour during the Nurture series.
Imagine if we had costumes.
Oh, don't get me started. Oh my God, I'll Amazon shit to you right now.
Ding dong. Excuse me. I've got a hat in the mail.
I'm like picturing Big Bird showing up on the set, being like, "Stage mom left. Stage mom left."
Yeah.
Alert! Get her off the stage. Yeah. I think that using our humor, especially during COVID quarantine. Right. Are we out of quarantine yet? Because I still feel like I'm in quarantine. I mean, look where I am. Yeah. I'm in my living room still. Right. Where are you?
It's not even your living room. That's how quarantined you are.
I've gotten so quarantined, even my living room has a living room.
Yeah, I'm in my living room. Well, I'm in New York, so I have 700 square feet. Here's about 150 of those square feet. I'd have to measure it out, but then the show would be over. So let's just take my word for it. Quarantine's really set up for people who are traveling, and then you got to stay in your apartment or house for a couple of weeks just to make sure you're not bringing COVID from one place to another, and make sure that your grandmother or someone else's grandmother doesn't die because
whenever I leave the house, I just think to myself, is today going to be the day that I become a murderer? I think about that every day. I think everyone thinks about that. If you're not thinking about that, then you just are a murderer. That's right. It. Whether you have murdered anyone or not.
Because you and I are doing this interview, it would be over in like 10 minutes because you try to murder me, I try to murder you, and then somebody would be dead. The police
Hopefully no one would succeed. Hopefully no one would succeed in that. That would be the hope.
I hope that too. But you never know. We're murderers, and you never know.
The house now.
But you were saying nurturing. We're nurturing murderers, and
we're nurturing. No, we're nurturing our funny bone. We're nurturing our joy. I really hope people are finding this interview joyous. I'm already having a really good time. I don't even have margarita, and I'm having a good time, which really means that you're bringing the energy hot tonight, Eddie.
Yeah. If we had a fake bartender, we can have a fake margarita and have the time of our lives.
This is the quarantine of the century, man.
I hear you knocking.
All right, so tell us a little bit about what drew you to comedy, because I know you have a very interesting life story and that you were also drawn to the healing arts as well. Can you tell us what drew you to comedy and then also what drew you to the healing arts?
It's about passion and compassion. Those are the two key words. To be passionate about what you do and to be, fully involved, enthralled in any decision you make, and to also be compassionate to others, especially to yourself. Our society teaches us through manipulation and through trying to make us consumers. They teach us that we're horrible people and, there's no compassion for each other or ourselves. I mean, the way you inspire people is be good to yourself. Like I had a friend who once said, I would love to do this in my life, but I have kids and I have this, I can't do this because of a child. And I thought about it. And I said, no, if you do what you want to do, your children will be inspired by the fact that you, in addition to loving unconditionally and caring for, doing the things you want to do in this life. So, I grew up in a very, poor house. We were, when I was very, very little, there was no money, and my father started making money. Then my parents got divorced, and I got with the stepfather, who was the most amazing guy in the world, but really poor. But we always laughed. It was always laughing. There was always comedy shows. My mom was unfortunately has passed, was the funniest person in our family, and it's a shame because I got paid for it, but I got it from her. But that was really important. As down times were, the tragedies that happened in my life with the deaths of my sister and my brother and my stepfather, all in their 30s. all we could do is be stronger for each other and laugh. And it's that compassion for each other that lifted us up. The compassion of the fact that we weren't Catholic, and the church in our neighborhood made sure that we had Thanksgiving food when we were when we were in that state of being poor. And it just shows you that that compassion lifts everyone, and the world would be a better place. It's so corny, rainbows and happiness,
sparkly cookies.
Yeah,
the world would be a better.
Yeah.
The world would be a better place if we just laughed a little bit more. And you're clearly.
What's so funny about Peace, Love, and Understanding is that famous song by Nick Lowe, who wrote that song. And what's so funny about Peace, Love, and Understanding? It's that what's weird about it is it doesn't make people money, except if you're a comedian.
What is your life's purpose?
I know that every day I'm going to live my truth. And by living my truth, I'm going to have the time of my life, and people around me are going to have fun, and they're going to hopefully respect me, standing up to my truth and not trying to, be somebody else.
What kind of healing arts experience did you have? I know you at one point had told me, I don't even know the answer to this. Most of the answers I'm asking you, most of the questions I'm asking you, I actually do know the answer because we've spoken for so many hours. It's interesting. Guys, I just met Eddie, but he's my life coach. He's my best friend. I just want everyone to know that right away, even though we've only known each other for maybe under a month. But you never did tell me what made you go into the healing arts. What was it about your journey that made you realize I really have to nurture the pain side of me? Because you had spent so many years obviously nurturing the joy side of you. How did you find that balance? Because a lot of funny comes from pain, right?
Right. Funny comes from pain. Funny comes from conflict. Doesn't have to be painful conflict. It could be a conflict. You have to try to get that couch through the door, and there's not enough room to get the couch through the door. There's a conflict, and that's a Laurel and Hardy episode. That's the funny in that. But I was driven sort of I was led to health. What happened was I had smoked a lot, and then I had wanted to quit. Was afraid I was going to gain a lot of weight. So I read this book called Easy Way to Quit Smoking, Alan Carr, famous book. And for some reason, I connected with it, and I was not only able to quit smoking, but I lost 60 pounds while I was quitting, which was amazing because I was pretty heavy at the time. And I had problems with my back because I played basketball growing up, and I had ruptured the disc in my back. And luckily, the whole other miracle of where this intern came and said, "Don't let them do surgery on you." And thank God, my back there's no issue with it. If I would have had a surgery back then, it would have been the worst, and I would have always been in pain. And every time it rained or snowed, an angel would lose its wings. But anyway, so while I was doing this, I had wanted to start doing some yoga and stuff like this to continue my journey of losing the weight, getting rid of the cigarettes, because I loved cigarettes and coffee. It was a breakfast of champions for me. Okay, so I want to continue this getting healthy thing because I felt good. No cigarettes. I was clearing up. My taste buds were coming back. I was able to really taste food, and I lost some weight, so it was really great for my back, and everything was really good. And I went to this bookstore in the neighborhood, and there was a woman sitting on one of the couches reading a book about yoga. And I went, "Oh, wow, cool. Can you tell me about yoga? I want to do this because my back was hurting." And she said, "You ever hear of craniosacral therapy?" And I said, "No, I hadn't." She said, "Well, you should read this book. No, you should get craniosacral therapy." She didn't say anything about a book. She said, "It's a really incredible treatment where it helps. Your body heals itself. That's just the way humans work. A small percentage of people don't. Some people are hemophiliacs. You cut yourself, you bleed out. But most human beings, our bodies heal ourselves. The immune systems are strong. We heal ourselves. It's just that simple. It's just simple science. Simple Simon Metapyman." And so I go in the yellow pages and I call up craniosacral therapy. Cranial is your head, and sacral is your back, the bottom of your spine. So the craniosacral is this rhythm that's in your body that goes through from your spine. It's a second rhythm that's not your heartbeat. and it helps clean out your body. Now, if you can clean out your body through craniosacral therapy and get the blood flowing, it heals it. Your body heals much quicker. So I went to a guy who was craniosacral therapist, and he charged me like $500. The guy was like was ripping me off, but the one thing that came out of the $500 and the smelly, you know, sort of conservative Jewish apartment that I was in, is that he had a book on the table. And I said, well, what's this book? He said, there was the guy who invented it, Dr. John Upledger. So I go back to the bookstore, I pick up this book, I read it cover to cover. It's amazing. Your Inner Physician and You by Dr. John Upledger. Now I want to meet this guy. He's like John Lennon to me, another John Lennon in my life. I want to meet this guy. His book is outstanding. And I happen to be going to Florida, where he has his own Upledger Institute in West Palm Beach. And I call up the institute and I go, hi, I'd like to speak to John Upledger, Dr. John Upledger. And they said, we have 15 of the best craniosacral therapy, and it's hard to get in touch with John. And, he's just very busy, and he's running the institute and this and that. But, I said, I'm coming to Florida. I'd really like to have this craniosacral with John. He goes, no, it's not going to happen, but we'll hook you up. I go, they'll hook me up. Just set me up. I want to come there. So now I'm working at the Letterman show at this time, and I never, ever pulled a little like, hi, I work at the Letterman show, and can I get into the blah, blah, blah. But I really wanted to meet this guy. And I called up and said, yeah, I'm a comedian. I work for the David Letterman show, and I'm coming down in a couple of days to work at the Improv in West Palm Beach. All of a sudden, the next day, the phone rings. Hi, this is Dr. John Upledger. And I go, look, he says, well, I'll probably be busy that day, but I'll come take a look at you when you come in. He says, I know David Letterman. I know David, and I worked with him before, and he's just a great guy, and, blah, blah, blah. So that worked. My little, using.
You Letterman'd him.
I Letterman'd him, so all the way to the bank. So I get in there, I meet him. We hit it off immediately, Dr. John Upledger and I, and end up having one of the greatest working relationships and friendships in the world, doing incredible things for children and incredible stuff we did together. He put his hands on my back and said, you don't really have any movement in your body from this part to this part. And he was a wizard. Yeah, I say he is because he had passed a couple of years ago. He was a wizard, and he was able to do all these things, and my body was healing and feeling better. I invited his whole staff to my comedy show. They loved it. So now I'm doing craniosacral therapy. I become close with Dr. John Upledger. He taught me about, how you don't have a microwave because it changes the DNA in the food and all of this stuff. And, some people think he's a quack because they don't believe that if you don't take pharmaceuticals, you can't get better. Meanwhile, there's ancient Chinese medicine and these kind of things that have been good for 5,000 years, but somebody invented this pill 20 years ago, and they're the gods. So I started believing this guy. We did an event where he had all these doctors who were cynical, and there was 7 people who were going to tell their story to all these cynical doctors about craniosacral therapy. And it was just a heartbreaking day with great results. This guy comes on first. He had Agent Orange from Vietnam. He couldn't have children. All the work that they did together. Now you see 2 kids. He has kids. And then, so like, and then that's crime. I don't know if you know what that's the
I figured that. I figured that. Okay.
So then, or it just could be like fanning yourself, but keeping your fingers apart so there's more air. But I think it's better with your fingers closed. But anyway, that's another video. Then my breath. And then there was this woman who had, she couldn't, they found the craniosacral, found the problem in her knee, and she was able to dive. And then there was this kid who was on a ventilator 24 hours a day, couldn't have a real life, couldn't go to school, couldn't have friends. And now here he is 8 hours a day off the ventilator, spending time with kids. And it was just one tear jerk, one after the other. And the audience is like, oh my God. And you could see the results of what happened. And eventually that kid was off the ventilators 24 hours a day. And then, so I went on last, and I made believe that I was a patient. And I said, I was in an accident, and I got, hit in the side in the car, and my whole body broke all the bones, whatever. And I lost my testicles. And the crowd's like, but they're all doctors. So, they don't think I'm making that up. You know what I mean? They don't know that I'm pretending about this. And they're like, oh my God. And I said, well, through all the craniosacral therapy and the somato emotional response and all that. My testicles grew back, and they're like, huh? And I said, not only that, I grew a third one. They're like, what? And so then I stood up and I said, look, I'm a comedian. I am a friend of Dr. John. And they stood and they applauded and they cheered because it was such an emotional day. To be able to laugh at the end was very cathartic, which shows how great comedy is.
Plus, I would imagine they were very happy that you had a third testicle.
Yeah, right. They want, and they, for the rest of the time, I've known everyone there. They've always said, how's your third testicle? It's always been a running joke and all that kind of thing. And I don't have three, but I do. I have five, and so anyway, so now I started doing more and more of this understanding of the body, and the more and more I did it, and I still do craniosacral therapy with people in New York, and reflexology and stuff I would have never dreamed I would do, but I saw it work. There's a thing I had done with John Upledger. It was called Cell Talk. I was going to have surgery on my knee, and he said, don't have surgery. Let me take a look at it first. He was able to do this thing called Cell Talk, which is crazy. And he said, look, I know you're going to think it's crazy, but you've trusted me all this time. Trust me on this one.
It's body talk energy, where they talk through and try to find the pinpoints where the energy is stuck, right?
And then he sent the stem cells in my body to go down and repair my knee. And I walked away with a good knee. And I went back to New York to the doctor, and he took x-rays, and he was like, holy shit, what happened? Yeah. And I said, craniosacral therapy. And then he got in touch with Upledger, and they became friends. And he realized that he was, there were other choices than surgery that you can help people. Like I had TMJ surgery on my jaw in 1981. I was one of the first people in America. I think I was the first American to have it. And I agreed, because we didn't have any money, to do it for free if I can be used in pictures and all this other stuff. I want to be in pictures. But so I did the jaw thing, and Upledger said, I wish I knew you before you did that, because the bones in your face are malleable, and I could have done all that work, and you wouldn't have had braces and had your jaw cut and all this kind of stuff like that. So
it is really remarkable and miraculous. I mean, I've been exposed to energy healing, cranial sacrum work for years. It is a miraculous experience. It's the only way that I could, kind of explain it. It's quite remarkable, actually. Body talk energy. I've done all those things, and I can absolutely say with certainty that it has shifted my life in massive, unique ways. That it's just been. We are very interesting machines, and we can adapt and change and evolve and transform on our own. Of course, having someone help you is extremely helpful. That's not to say I'm also like a daughter of a scientist, and my father was a doctor and a science researcher. And so I'm also grounded in science and facts. So, it's
if your father was a scientist and he grounded you, you would be grounded in science. So he'd probably send you to your room, and you think that's grounded in science, but it's not the same. All right, I'll stop. Playing with words. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Eddie has.
I can't help it.
Time maker of the century. But I think it is hard to, figure out, like, if you've grown up with a father who's a physician, and, he used to make fun of people who were doing more holistic medicine. It was hard for him to wrap his head around. But the older I got, the more I realized, that there's a reality to both sides. We have to keep ourselves open-minded to both of them. What is the last year? It's been really tough for you because you've been kind of alone, right? The quarantine was really hard on you, Eddie. Like, how did you find a way to nurture your funny bone during the period of time where you were kind of lonely and isolated? What did you do?
It was very hard. It was really depressing. My comedy was getting stronger and stronger, as comedians will tell you. The more stage time, the better you are. That's the only teacher in comedy. You can't learn from a book. You can't learn. I could give you all the advice in the world. You have to go on stage and do it and learn yourself. It's the stage time, is the only teacher. So I didn't have stage time. I went from working hundreds and hundreds of shows a year. There was one year I did almost 600 shows in 1 year. And you just get better and better at it. And I'm just addicted to it because I love, the ability to make people laugh is really, it's a science. But it feels so good. Like, you can formulaically make people cry, but you have, it's
I'm
very.
really good at that.
Are you? Well, I have always seen you laugh. I hope that's all I see.
Long enough, I can make you cry probably. I'm really
Oh,
good at
I'm
making
already
someone
crying.
cry.
Yeah,
I could
but
easily get you there. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be kind.
yes. What kind? How many kinds?
It's easier to
The
make somebody cry than to make somebody laugh.
Right. So it's very powerful. And when you get your first laugh, I was in a comedy, improv sketch group in college, and I think it was the end of '76, beginning of '77. I was in the first skit ever and the first ever comedy thing we did at college, and I got the first laugh of it, and it was a big laugh, and it was so nurturing. It felt so incredible, and it's like a drug. You chase it the rest of your life. You want it, it's fun to make people laugh. You shouldn't be on all the time, which, like I've been goofing with you a lot during this, but when in our conversations, if it was only joking and kidding all the time, there wouldn't be any real heart to
Right.
it. There wouldn't be the truth is the foundation of all comedy, and of most comedy. I can't. There's never everything. There's no infinite way, but most comedy comes up based in the foundation of the truth. If it doesn't, it's a very abstract kind of looking at it. So it's really important to find that nurturing. It's like, what's the truth in the situation? I want to find out that. So I use that truth as my foundation, and then I play with it from there. And it really does. It's really powerful, and it's really beautiful. And the more you learn about it, the more you already. It's in my heart. So back to the original question. So for a long time, I wasn't making people laugh. And I'm a sports fan, so there's no sports because people can't be out in public playing. And I'm watching, comedy films. And then a couple opportunities came to me where I could do my work at home, which was adding the funny to a script, and that was really great. Paid the bills, and it kept me busy and kept my brain working. And then about 2.5 months ago, I started every night doing a little Instagram live thing. I saw my brother's girlfriend did one, and it was kind of funny. And I went and tried it, and it's really fed my comedy brain, and I have that sort of mojo back now. And now I'm doing so many things. I'm like tonight. This is part 2 of a 5-part evening, and me doing creative things tonight. I have the Instagram live every night, which is crazy. I'm always there, consistently there, and it's mostly for me. In a sense, for me to use my brain and use when I'm talking with you, I can joke all the time. The way my brain works. There's, of the 70 things I've joked with you about here, there's 210 things I could have done in that time. The way my brain works, and then
199 of them would have been completely inappropriate.
Completely, and would have made a lot of people laugh. And because you should be able to be inappropriate.
I think what you've hit upon, which is very important, especially for our viewers and our listeners who may be wanting to find a different way to look at their lives, maybe with a funnier lens, with a more joyful way, is that you have to start just being consistently invested in creating something. It really could be anything. It could be, as small as every single night you're going to paint a picture, or you're just going to, commit yourself to some creative endeavor in some way where you have to force yourself to look at something differently. You have to come around an idea with a very different perspective. You're going to get out of your comfort zone, and that breeds more creativity, and that breeds more. So you are such a good example of how you got yourself out of this feeling of isolation, which I think is so important for people who are stuck at home or who have been stuck at home, especially if you're single and you're living by yourself. And a lot of my viewers are like, what are different ways that you could tackle, even in small doses, ways that you can tackle getting that vibrancy back? Like, we want to nurture ourselves back to vibrancy after this year of complete isolation, right?
Right, and that's the nurture, and that leads with nurturing yourself. Like, instead of beating yourself up, because I always ask the question, how has that served me?
You're also, with these Instagram lives and with these different clubhouses that you're now entertaining people, you have figured out a way to connect with others and bring other joy. And I think there's a combination, there's a sweet spot, right? There's a sweet spot combination of taking care of yourself but then nurturing others in the process where it's like this collaborative cohesiveness.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what it is. And, and then there's joy. And from joy, it opens your heart up. Like, I'm so joyous today, because I mean, the world is not there's nothing to celebrate of the deaths of people. The other night I was doing my big Sunday night show. 6 minutes before I went on the air, found out one of my closest friends had died. I was doing an Instagram live before I did this with you, and my friend's father-in-law died, and we were going to do a bit. We were having a sort of business meeting, and it's just there's sadness always all around. But how do you deal with the sadness? Is you find joy in what is that you got to find the joy in there, and also at the same time celebrate the life of the person that's no longer there, or celebrate the lesson you've learned through the negative experience.
I think it's also like vibrating within the collateral beauty. I was talking about this with a friend of mine yesterday, that within every situation that is devastating and painful and difficult, there's always all this like collateral beauty that occurs in between the rain,
The raindrop.
drops.
Yeah. Well, there's a high energy that that Einstein always talked about, and you can join that energy high or join it low and stay in the
Yeah.
low path. But I choose to go join the high energy, and that lifts me up, and I bring my energy to it, and I plug into that energy. And every once in a while, I go into like beating myself up or getting angry at myself, and I'm listening to society and advertising and politics and religion and parents who are protecting their own feelings by making you do things that are unnatural, like feel bad about yourself, guilt.
Oh, the guilt.
Yeah, guilt doesn't exist in nature. It's something we have to create. So, like, you can feel remorse, you can feel sad that you did something, wish you did something else. But when you choose guilt, you're really you're stabbing yourself in the brain.
You're choosing the suffering state.
Yeah, you're choosing the suffering, and
Yeah.
in reality, you just say, I'm not going to accept the guilt anymore. I'm going to learn a lesson from the mistake I made or the thing I have remorse for. Learn from it, apologize if you have to, whatever, but don't
Make
walk
amends.
around with guilt. Why do that to ourselves?
What's the difference between guilt and regret?
Well, guilt is something you create. Regret is something you have that's natural. You regret, like, say I missed the interview tonight. I would really be regretful that I did that because I was looking forward to it. You have a deadline, and I would regret it. But if I really meant to be here and was late, I would regret that I was late, but I wouldn't. There's no reason to feel guilty for being late because I didn't do it on purpose.
But would you say that like guilt is the punishment aspect of regret?
I would say it's self punishment.
That's what I mean. It's like the regret is the moment that you feel like, oh, I missed something, and then the guilt is the obsessive compulsive thoughts that occur that continually self punish you for having that regret.
Destroy you, and do not help you solve what's going on.
Right.
If I was guilty, how is that serving me? How is that serving you? If you said, Eddie, look, you were late. I had plans and this and that. And I would go, I'm sorry, how can I make it up to you? Can we do it now? Can we do it tomorrow? Can I do it next week? And then, we still love each other. We're friends, there's no, but if, guilt is used as a weapon to, make people be consumers. How do you get people to feel, get people to feel bad about themselves and then say you have the product that's going to make them feel better. And, it's just something they create so they can, they create a negativity so that they can bring a false positivity to even it out. And when reality, it's like, sexuality is one of the most deepest parts of ourselves as humans, the most natural part of who we are. And, religion will take sexuality and make it evil. Will, make it like it's an evil thing. And then people feel guilty, and the sexuality between people are not as beautiful as it should be because, they say, well, God will look down on you. No, God is creating this sexuality and, become, and, embrace it, and, of course there are details that you don't want a little child to have, a sexuality knowledge. In time you would, but you don't want to tell a kid sex is dirty, sex is the devil's work. sex is bad, then you're going to just hate yourself and feel dirty about yourself. And you're going to pass that on to somebody else who's insecure. And you're going to have this insecure relationship that doesn't go anywhere because you're racked in guilt that you've created that doesn't exist.
I think that, like, you know, to me, sexuality is very similar to a composition, a music composition. It's like both need to have boundaries and rules for it to play in the perfect symphony that it needs in order for it to work beautifully and cohesively. And if there are no boundaries, then it becomes it loses its spark and it loses its, invigorated ability to serve humanity with like life.
But at the other hand, you get something like, avant-garde jazz, like Eric Dolphy on the clarinet, or, Philip Glass, where they don't really have boundaries, and there's boundaries.
Even within those boundaries, there's still certain rules of cohesiveness in order for it to have, like a rhythm.
Well, that's an agreement between two people. And that's part of discovery. That's part of respect. That's part of integrity that goes in all that. It's not only sexual, it's everything.
Everything has a certain rhythm to it, has certain boundaries, and not rules, but rules that we create in order to have like a higher service, in order for it to sort of live in its space with, like you said, with integrity.
Right. Because, but to say that sex is the devil's work is one of the meanest things you can do to a child.
Yeah. It's very, very dangerous and extremely abusive. It doesn't live in a place of abundance, but in massive constriction, which is not, it's not healthy.
There is an abundance to it because there's a lot of religions that will talk about that, or parents will say they're scared of having to raise their child and being able to tell them the truth. And so they create this sort of negative imagery, when in reality it is the most God-given natural feeling that we have: attraction for each other, or love for each other, or care for each other. And so again, I think that as humans, we evolve, we learn about each other, we learn about ourselves, and we embrace all of that with the knowledge that we mean to do good things. You don't kill someone, you don't go out and murder them, but sometimes you have to let off steam, and that's natural. And as long as you know that that person loves you with all their heart, if they let off steam, you're like, oh, I got to give that person a little space. They stub their toe and they're really not happy about it.
What are some of the funniest experiences that you've had being a stand-up comic?
Other than you and I laughing all night, talking on different times. Well, it's an interesting question because, comedy is funny, but it's also very serious. The funniest things for me, like one night I was doing stand-up comedy, and, there's an ego. You're up on stage and you're controlling the rhythm of the room, and it's going really well. And I'm on stage, and all of a sudden I notice, when I'm only out there a couple of minutes, this couple gets up and walks out. I'm like, well, I wonder why they would walk out. I'm kind of funny, and and I didn't do anything bad yet.
Maybe they didn't like the food. Why do you assume it was you?
Yeah, I'm really seeing it. I could see the whole thing, and everyone's having a good time except these two people, and I'm focused on them because that's the way my brain works. And I'm wondering why. And I see them get up and talk to the door person, and they make a face and they leave. So now I got to do my show. In the back of my mind, it's like, what did I do? Why? Maybe I did a show and they didn't like it. And they go, we don't want to see this guy again. Or I'm, making all these assumptions, which you should never do. What happens is I go over to the door person at the end of the show and I go, what was that about? They said, well, they saw the marquee with your name on it and they misread it. They thought it was Edie Brickell. And when you came out as Eddie Brill, they were like really disappointed because they realized they made a mistake, that this wasn't Edie Brickell and that was Eddie Brill. And what's cool, years later, I got to meet Edie Brickell and tell her that story, and she loved it.
Oh, wow. That's a great story, Eddie. That is a great story. I always end my interviews. This has been so much fun, by the way. I feel like I've learned so much about cranial sacrum, sex, playing piano during sex. Like, what did we discuss? I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't even know. didn't
how
remember
to inspire your own creativity, your own beauty, your own joy. How do you nurture yourself?
I'm
What
by
did you do today to nurture yourself?
today. I did a lot of very fun and funny things. Treated myself really well. Called a bunch of people, made their world fun. Created future comedy opportunities for me and other people, and
Me too. Am I in that? Do I get to be that?
and then I came to you, my new best friend in the whole world, who I got to talk with you.
That's fantastic. So for you, nurturing yourself is really an extension of what you do best, which is making people laugh. And I think that's such a brilliant thing. It says in the Torah
Right.
that the greatest gift a person could give the world is to create laughter. And
Wow.
those who decide to use their life to make others laugh go straight to heaven.
Wonderful.
You
Well,
could screw up now. You could do anything you want. You've landed in heaven either way.
I have a suite picked out for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to Bed Bath and literally Beyond to pick up my stuff for my suite in heaven.
Yeah, you're definitely
Find
gonna.
myself in sweet heaven.
Yeah, you'll be fine. God is going to shine down on you with lots of compassion and love for sure because of what you're bringing to the world, especially now during COVID. I mean, are we over? Are we in it? I don't know. A lot of us are already, vaccinated, but we're still like, are we wearing a mask?
Still going on. It's still going on, and we just are so sick of it, and we wasted so much time politicizing it instead of dealing with it that we're suffering now when we should be well past it. So we have to deal with what we have and make the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And I give you a lot of credit, Eddie, because I know that it's been a tough year for you being by yourself and isolated. Could not have been easy. I can't imagine it. I've been in my house with my kids and it's been, quite busy. It's funny. One of the things you said that really resonated with me is that you like find ways to entertain yourself. And during COVID, because there was not, I mean, it was just so crazy. Like we just kept quarantining, not being able to go anywhere. So we just like, me and my kids would spend all day just like making really funny videos and we would make like the craziest things. And I had them be my extras and do my B-roll for me like over and over. We must have made 15,000 TikToks. A couple of my kids actually went viral. And then of course, when they brought me in it, no one watched it.
Ah, that's funny in itself. Look how you're laughing.
It actually was the most entertaining thing that we could have done as a family. It was like any time like my sister would come over and she would wave through us through the window because she couldn't come in the house because we didn't know if we were going to murder her or not. She would look through the window and she would see all of us. It was like literally walking in on set. She would see us just like, playing with the camera and it was really funny.
That's funny, but we've had Zoom. We have a dinner we have every month. We've been doing it for years, and we were able to do it online. And now this Friday, we're going to be able to do it live for the first time in over a year. My brother lives in New York, and he was careful to protect me from getting COVID, so he would get tested, and then when he was clean, he'd come over and we big hugs. And so I did have the nurturing of friends and family. But it's the touch, the compassion, the shaking someone's hand, putting your hand on their arm or shoulder when they're talking to you, that kind of thing that my family does. It's so important, so that's the stuff we miss.
Well, listen, it should continue. We should continue to make each other laugh and to be inspirations in each other's lives, compassionate, inspirational friends. And thank you so much for being on the Nurture series, Eddie Brill.
Yay, I had so much fun.
I know you have to go because you have a very important date on Clubhouse. You're doing a show on Clubhouse?
I'm moderating some of the greatest music producers, including Jack Douglas in the world, who produced the John Lennon Yoko Ono album, last one, and all the Aerosmith and a million great stars. And we're going to talk about the business of music and production and where the future is with digital and all this kind of stuff. And then after that at 10 o'clock, I'm on the Clubhouse app, and that's going to be featuring me talking about what I'm doing on Clubhouse. And then because I have my big show with Bill Burr on Sunday night. at 9.
If you guys want to follow Eddie Brill, the show notes, I will have all of his info and intel in the show notes so that you can go and follow some of the fantastic things he's doing, the shows on Clubhouse, things on his Instagram, the way that he's encouraging those to find their funny bone, and once again, to inspire those with his compassion and his humor. Thank you so much for being here, Eddie. This was so much fun. I could talk to you for 2 hours, but I wouldn't do that
Then we'll do it again, because there's
for sure.
So many things we could talk about, and we will.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Eddie.
Right.
This was so much fun.
Are we still recording?
Yeah.
We're still recording. Oh, we are. Okay.
Yeah, we're still recording.
Okay. All right, good. I got to run to that show, or else you and I, the first time we ever talked on the phone, I said, we talked for a couple of hours, and we go, look, I got to go. And then we started texting, and then we started, back again. We couldn't be without each other.
We have so much in common. But the people are calling, and when the people call, you must answer.
Like, where am I? Where are you? Where are you? We're on in 4 minutes. All right. Love you.
Take care, Annie. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
My pleasure. Bye.